I came home early because inventory had been canceled. In my rain jacket, still smelling like cardboard and wet pine. The house looked normal from porch, with Adrian's truck sitting where it sat. Then my phone pinged before I touched the handle, and the lock app opened to a line I had never seen. Guest code Maddie had unlocked front door 3 times that week, the last one before dinner. I stayed outside with my keys pressed into my palm. Madison Vale was my best friend, the woman who stood beside me at my wedding and knew where I kept extra coffee filters. Her nickname on my lock was not a mistake, and the cream sweater on my dryer was not something a stranger left behind. It smelled like her vanilla perfume, the same scent she wore when she hugged me and asked about Adrian. The kitchen told me what my chest already knew. Beside Adrian's laptop sat a printed draft with my name in the first paragraph. Brielle left the home voluntarily after an emotional episode. It read, like my pain had already been typed into something useful. He had not only brought her into my house, he had started writing me out of it. Adrian came from the hallway barefoot, shirt untucked. Concern arriving late. Brielle, you weren't supposed to be back tonight. Slipped out before he found a cleaner sentence. Madison appeared behind him in the gray hoodie I bought him. Hair damp. Eyes wide, but not sorry. Don't let her make this into something it isn't, she breathed. And that was when I understood she had not fallen into his lie. She had been helping him shape it. I did not scream. Screaming would have given that draft what it wanted. I lifted my phone, photographed the lock history, the sweater, and statement before Adrian reached for the paper. My hands shook, but the screen stayed clear. If you two already wrote a story about me, I told them, then I'm keeping the first version. I drove away before either of them could follow, but my hand still reached for Madison's name like my body had not learned the truth. She had been my first call after bad shifts, and every panic I did not want Adrian to see. She stood beside me at my wedding, slept on my couch, and knew the garage code because I trusted her. For 1 second, I stared at her contact like the woman in my hallway had borrowed Madison's face. I did not call, but her text arrived before I reached the gas station. I can explain, but not while he's upset. It read, and I sat through a green light until someone honked. She did not ask if I was safe, shaking, or had somewhere to sleep. She wrote about Adrian first, and that choice told me their private order had replaced mine. By morning, I met her at the coffee place near the river because I needed to hear the lie in person. Madison was already in our corner booth. Hair low, eyes swollen. In the coat I once praised. She reached for my hand, and I slid my cup between us. Brielle, this didn't start the way you think. Came out soft, like she had practiced guilt without responsibility. She told me she had known Adrian before I ever met him, when they were teenagers and everything felt unfinished. He was my first love, she whispered, and the room went quiet beneath the machine hiss. I looked at the woman who knew my creamer, my mother's birthday, and my spare key drawer. If this was old heartbreak, why were you using a guest code in my house? Madison looked down. Her silence did more damage than any confession she could shape. She wanted the past to explain the sweater, the hoodie, the draft, and how she stood behind my husband like I was the intruder. Maybe something had been taken from her, but she had taken my trust with both hands. I left her with the coffee going cold between us, because friendship was not something she could explain after using it as a key. I went to my mother's house because I needed one room in Bend where no one had touched my life without permission. Lorna had chicken casserole in the oven, 2 plates set, and her church shoes by the door, though it was not Sunday. I knew something was wrong before she looked at me, because my mother cleaned when scared. Then Adrian's headlights swept across the curtains, and the word family landed on the table like a trap. He walked in carrying flowers for my mother, not me, which told me exactly who he had come to convince. Lorna pressed her napkin flat and murmured, "Sweetheart, talk before you do something you cannot undo." Adrian sat across from me with claims office calm, hands folded, voice low enough to sound wounded. Brielle misunderstood what she saw. He breathed, and Madison only came over because I needed someone to talk to. I looked at my mother, waiting for her face to change, but fear had made her gentle in the wrong direction. "Honey, one ugly night should not burn down a marriage," she said, and the casserole kept cooling between us. Adrian lowered his eyes like a man accepting punishment, but his phone lit up beside his fork. Madison's text sat there plain as a receipt. "Keep it calm. Keep saying she left first." The room went quiet in a way even my mother could not soften. I did not raise my voice, because the proof was already glowing inches from her water glass. "Mom, he did not come here to fix anything," I told her, watching Adrian reach for the phone too late. "He came here to make you a witness." Lorna's mouth opened, then closed, and all her old advice seemed to lose its footing. Adrian tried my name again. Softer, but softness sounded different after the text on his screen. I stood, took the screenshot before his thumb could erase it, and slid my chair back without touching dinner. "If this is family," I told them, "then someone should have remembered I was part of it." By sunrise, I had stopped pretending I could think through it alone. I found a family law attorney in downtown Bend, a narrow office above a bakery, and carried everything in one folder. The lock history, the sweater photo, the draft statement, and Madison's text on Adrian's phone sat on my lap while I waited. My hands kept smoothing the folder edges, as if neat paper could make the night less ugly. The attorney was Maren Ellis, and she did not gasp when I told her about Adrian and Madison. She listened with a pen in her hand while traffic hissed through wet pavement outside. When I finished, she tapped the draft statement and said, "The affair hurts, but this is where he got careless. Oregon does not need you to prove cheating to end a marriage, but false paper can change how people hear after it." That sentence landed harder than comfort. I had wanted someone to tell me I was not crazy, but Maren pointed to the line where Adrian claimed I left after an emotional episode. Then she pointed to the lock log showing Madison entering before I ever packed a bag. The pain explained why I was shaking, but the timestamps explained why they were scared. Maren told me not to post, threaten, or call Adrian until he could make that look useful. "Keep records. Keep quiet. Keep every exchange written," she said. And for the first time, quiet did not feel like losing. It felt like holding my breath underwater until I reached the surface. I left her office with the folder heavier than before, because now every page had a job. I was halfway to my car when Travis Cole called. Adrian's older brother never called unless someone had a flat tire, a weather warning, or a holiday plan to confirm. His voice came tight through the speaker. Not cold, just ashamed. "Brielle, I need to meet you." Not over text. And the way he avoided Adrian's name told me the next piece had been waiting outside. Travis chose a sandwich shop off the highway, the kind of place with plastic baskets, weak coffee, and windows facing a tire store. He arrived in his work jacket, shoulders hunched like the cold had followed him inside. I had known Adrian's brother for years, but I had never seen him look afraid of a table. He sat across from me, placed a brown envelope between us, and kept one hand on it like paper could burn. "I saw them at the cabin," he began, his voice low enough to disappear under the lunch crowd. I told myself it wasn't my marriage, and for a while that sounded almost reasonable to him. Then he slid the envelope open, and the first page showed the recreation check in record from the family pass near Sisters. Adrian Cole had signed in with one guest, and the staff note beside it read wife. Madison. The word wife did not hit like a scream. It hit like someone quietly trying on my coat in a mirror. Madison had once asked about that cabin while we folded towels in my laundry room, and I had told her where the best coffee was on the drive. Now the question had a new shape, because she had not been curious about a place. She had been learning the route. Travis pushed a second page toward me. A parking note with Adrian's truck and Madison's Subaru listed side by side. "I already called Mom and Dad," he murmured, "because records are records. And I won't let him make you sound crazy." For the first time since I left my house, someone from Adrian's family did not ask me to be careful with his name. Travis was careful with mine. I folded the papers back into the envelope and felt the whole story shift under my hands. Adrian had not only brought Madison into my home, he had carried my title to a public counter and handed it to her like a weekend pass. Travis looked ashamed, but the shame finally had direction. When I walked out, the envelope was heavier than betrayal, because it gave his family no clean place left to stand. I found the box in the garage while gathering Adrian's files for Marin. It was wedged behind camping chairs, taped badly, with tax folders and photos from before me. At the bottom sat letters in Adrian's young handwriting, addressed to Madison Vale and never mailed. The first one began. I waited by the phone again, and my anger shifted because the paper proved something broke before me. I took the letters to Adrian's mother because I needed the truth from someone with no reason left to protect me. She read one on the porch, and the color left her face before the second page. "I kept some of Madison's letters back then," she admitted, "because I thought he would throw college away for her." The sentence did not save Madison, but it explained why her hurt had aged into hunger. When Madison heard I knew, she came to the bookstore parking lot without lipstick, earrings, or the bright voice she used around everyone else. "I should have told you," she began, but I stopped her with the letters in my pocket. She said Adrian had been her first love, that his silence made her feel erased, and that meeting me later felt like seeing the life she should have had. I listened because the letters were real, but so was the guest code. She looked smaller than the woman who had stood in my hallway wearing his hoodie. "At first, I stayed close to you because of him," she confessed, "and then you became my friend for real. That was the cruelest part, because I believed her. You loved me close enough to know where spare mugs were." I told her, and still used the code to come in. Madison cried quietly, but tears did not move the sweater from my dryer or erase her words on Adrian's phone. She said being with him did not feel like home, only like two adults pretending a wound could become a marriage. I almost felt sorry for the girl those letters had hurt, but the woman in front of me had chosen my house for repair. So I left her there with the past in her hands and no clean way to use it. The temporary orders meeting did not look like the moment a life collapsed. It was a conference room with beige walls, bottled water, and a clock clicking over everyone's restraint. Adrian came in clean-shaven, wearing the face he used with adjusters, calm enough to make hurt look unreasonable. Marin sat beside me with my folder closed, which made the room colder. Adrian's attorney began with careful words about cooling things down and preserving dignity. Adrian added that I had been overwhelmed, that I left because emotions were high, and that he wanted the house handled peacefully. I kept my hands still while he tried to turn my silence into proof of instability. Then Marin opened the folder, and paper started doing what shouting never could. First came the lock log with Madison's guest code, used before I packed a bag. Then came the screenshot from my mother's table, Madison telling him to keep saying I left first. Marin placed the draft statement beside it, the one that made my pain sound documented. By the time she added Travis's cabin record, with wife, Madison in a staff note, Adrian stopped looking at me. Marin's voice stayed even. "Your client can end a marriage, but he cannot write my client out of the home and call it concern." Nobody gasped, because real consequences rarely arrive with noise. Adrian tried to say I was making it bigger than it was, but the sentence sounded thin beside his timeline. The room had every answer it needed, and none came from my mouth. By the end, the arrangement was plain. I would remain in the house while the divorce moved forward. Adrian would not change codes, bring Madison inside, or contact me outside the written app. His attorney spoke quietly about his employer reviewing conduct, because a claims coordinator caught shaping a false statement had a credibility problem. Madison's office had heard enough to question why a mediation receptionist was helping draft language for someone else's marriage. I walked out with no victory rush, only a steadier breath. The affair had broken my heart, but the paper had broken their cover. Adrian stood by the elevator like he wanted one last soft sentence from me. I gave him nothing, because the documents had finally said everything. I came back to the house in Bend with Marin's order in my purse and a new code waiting on the lock. The same porch boards creaked under my shoes, but the sound no longer felt like a warning. Inside, I deleted Maddie from the access list and watched the screen ask if I was sure. I was sure in a way I had not been sure of anything since the cream sweater on my dryer. I washed Adrian's gray hoodie because I refused to let Madison's perfume stay in my laundry room like evidence with a pulse. Then I folded it, placed it in a donation bag, and set the bag by the door where her guest code used to matter. The kitchen table was cleared of every draft, receipt, and lie that did not belong to me. For the first time, my house felt quiet without feeling occupied. My mother came by that evening with soup in a blue pot and no speech prepared. Lorna stood in my kitchen, looking smaller than she had at her own table, and finally said, "I called it saving your marriage because I was scared to admit I taught you to disappear politely." I did not forgive her in some clean instant, because life does not repair itself that neatly. But I let her wash the bowls, and sometimes apology starts with someone doing the small thing they should have done first. Travis texted 2 days later. Short and plain. The way men write when shame has run out of hiding places. Mom and Dad saw the records. He wrote, and they told Adrian not to bring Madison around them. That was not a parade or punishment. Just a door closing in the exact place Madison had tried to enter. Adrian moved into an apartment near work, his conduct review still open, his family no longer smoothing the edges of his story. Madison asked to meet outside a bookstore on Wall Street. And I went, because some endings need a face. She looked tired, not ruined, which made the whole thing feel more honest than drama ever could. "I used your friendship as a bridge back to him," she admitted, and her voice cracked on bridge like she finally heard what it meant. "You did not lose me because you loved him." I told her, "You lost me when you helped him make me look unstable." Adrian left one voicemail after that, and I listened while standing in the hallway with the new lock app still open. "I am sorry for the statement. For Madison. For making you look like the problem, because I did not want to look like the man who caused it." His voice had no clean place to land in me anymore. I saved the message for Marin, then set the phone down and made dinner without calling him back. Weeks later, I stopped at Callum Pierce's diner in Redmond because rain had turned the highway silver and I did not want to eat alone in my parked car. He brought coffee before I asked and said, "Kitchen's closing, but coffee has better manners than people." I laughed before I could stop myself, and the sound did not feel like betrayal. We talked about pie, bad roads, long shifts, and the strange mercy of being quiet beside someone who does not demand your whole wound. He did not try to rescue me, and I did not try to become new overnight. A few evenings later, he walked me to my car under cold Oregon air and asked, "I want me to walk with you, not because I'm afraid." I answered, "Because I'd like that." That was the moment I knew peace had not arrived loudly. It had come softly, with my own keys in my hand. If this story feels like a part of your life, leave one honest comment below. Not to reopen the pain, and not to carry it longer than you should. Leave it, because someone else may need to hear that peace can begin the moment you stop letting other people write your truth.